All right. Good morning, Wild and Well together. This is Becca Breen with another episode of Fan Fridays. This is my most favorite because my mom is here. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. If you celebrated this last week, thank you to all the moms in the world. I today get to share the woman behind the curtain, the reason I am who I am. She's a little nervous, and that's okay. I'm calling it out, Mom. We're being vulnerable. Mom, give us a little, Suze, Mama Harder, Mom. Mama, what do you want to share with everyone? Your glasses? What do you want to share? Who are you?
Glasses because I'm wearing indoor sunglasses. I've had cataract surgery and having some ultraviolet treatment, so that's why somebody told me I look like Adam Ant, but only if you're my generation, you might not know who that is. So
Who is Adamant? I don't know who
it's a
that is.
cartoon, and it glasses on. So
Oh, we're gonna have to put that in the show notes, or I'm gonna have to look that up afterwards. But yeah, this is fun. Okay, so you've listened to Majority. You are a fan of us, and we are a fan of you. Let's start with just so people can learn a little bit of our dynamics growing up. There are three siblings, or there's three of us children. So you and Dad met. What year did you and Dad meet?
oh gosh, eons ago.
Eons. Okay, we're getting into this.
It's almost 47 years ago. So
Okay,
1979, I think that would be.
nice. Okay, good math. Good math.
And we've been married be 41 years this summer.
Yeah, awesome. So you guys got married in 1985. You had Chad, who we'll get into in a bit, our oldest brother, then some miscarriages, then Mal, my sister, then me, middle kid, Holler, then Jake, and then a miscarriage after that. And so our family dynamic was fun, was very inviting. One of my favorite memories is that you and Dad, anyone was welcome at the table. That's where that phrase started because I was taught that from a young age of, man, I brought home a lot of friends over the years. Cousins brought friends, and I brought a lot of different friends over the years. And so share a little bit of what you and Dad decided and just kind of your mindset around having an open door policy of anyone who comes into the house is welcome. And then we'll get to Chad in a bit.
Yeah, anybody probably started with my mother more than with my husband, Art, but anybody was always welcome at the house. And even as growing up, like in high school and stuff, we had kids from School of Mines that came that my mother would open up the home and have meals. So I got married, did the same thing. Certainly every Easter, Thanksgiving, if my brothers were in town, they always brought a guest. Many times I didn't know until they showed up at the door. So we just put a few more plates on the table and a few more chairs. And so that's been our policy I did have one little thing with you kids. I did ask you before you invited kids to dinner or something, could you ask me first so I wasn't surprised right at the moment before? So I'd be ready because my Jake brought his best friend Brooke one time, and or maybe it's somebody else. And right as we sat down, oh, mom, they're gluten free, they're vegetarian. So then I had to flip my mind and make something really quick. So very few restrictions to that. Mostly anybody could show up.
Yes, well, and I think the ask was not that not it wasn't gonna be a no, it was, "Can you give me a heads up that they were coming?" And so, again, from the start, we use a phrase, as you know, of "add more water to the soup," and I don't know if who that comes from or where I learned that, but it's definitely a phrase that you taught in regards to, "Yeah, pull up a chair, we can make more room," and it might be that we squeeze 15 people around a 10-person table, but it's anyone's welcome, and so that's the impetus for this. Let's go into the now family dynamics. You come from a long line of wonderful women, of mothers and mothers and mothers and mothers. Who's like, go as far back as you can in your lineage. Who's your grandma or great grandma? Who did you get to know first? Like, what's your lineage of women?
Grandmas for sure, but there were great grandma alive too because one of my grandmas lived till 95. And I mean, my great grandma lived till 95, so I know her. But then we moved away from Minnesota where I grew up, so I didn't get to see her as often. But both of my grandmothers, both my dad's mom and my grandma, they only lived 1 to 2 hours away from us when we were in Minnesota. So we go on the weekend and we go to my mom's mom on family on Friday night, spend the night, spend the day with her, and then we go on to the next town and spend the night and the day with that grandma before we headed back to St. Cloud where we were growing up. So I was very close. I got very close with my dad's mother as I got to be to junior high and high school because I started writing letters to her and she would always write them back. So I think we became closer during that time, and she lived till 98, so I had her for a long time.
Yeah, and I even got to know.
And then my mom, of course, would be the most, you know, that I was the closest to in life, and she patterned a lot of things for me, cooking, cleaning,
Yeah.
loving.
5'1"? How tall was grandma?
5'2", and I'm 5'8", so she was a little bit tiny. I don't know how I came out of that, but I did.
Lord knows how anyone comes out of us, but, the birds and the bees. But no, let's go into then with grandma and your grandmas. Where did the baking and the good cooking come from? Because
Yeah, well, quickly, my dad's mom was a great cook, and she showed me a few things, but hers would be, "Okay, here's how you make pie crust," and then, I didn't write it down, so I didn't remember it so much, but mom's mom, Grandma Margaret, had recipes, and they were family recipes, a lot of them. So she passed them to my mother, and then my mother passed them on to me, and we had a certain cookie that at Christmas that, it was a sugar cookie, and you decorate it with colored sugar, and mom and I always made those together, probably my sister Nancy too, but especially I remember doing it with mom. And then now I pass it on to the kids, and even Jake came once and in high school and brought a girl, and we did them. He was only interested for about a half an hour, so I ended up doing most of it. And now I've done it with your little Lulu and Marcus. So
yeah, so if we count, yeah, I mean, very much a lineage of family and cooking and baking and really good meals. And so if we count it, then it would be your grandma, your mom, you, me, so 5 generations for sure, if not before that too.
yeah, I don't know if the recipes came before my grandmother or not. That I don't know.
Yeah. And then so food's been a big thing for all of our community. Food's a big thing in our family. We love it. It's good. One of the things that I'm most grateful for, mom, that you know, and I've shared this, but I want to share with everyone else is body image. As we talk about food, I grew up in a house, thanks to you, where it was just healthy. Like the food wasn't always healthy. Like, let me say that the food was what it was, and could be Oreos. Sometimes we always had sweet treat at the end, but you did a phenomenal job of not shaming Mallory or me in our ebbs and flows of body image or zits or different things. And as we matured and as we aged and our body morphed, you have always championed us. So thank you. I say that behind the scenes, but also in front. What was your what was your thought around that? I want to bring that in. And you and I didn't prep on that, but this is coming up because many women talk about body image and self destruction and negative self talk. And whether that has to do with acne or that has to do with weight gain or that has to do different things, it doesn't mean you don't think about that. In fact, we've had lots of conversations. But was it conscious or not to just love us as we are and have healthy body image in our household?
I think it was conscious to love you as you are, but I do think too I grew up with you didn't have a ton of food. Like we had homemade cookies in our house. My parents weren't rich by any means. And so you had one cookie for dessert. You didn't have six cookies for dessert or you shared something, a few pieces each. And certainly with my own weight has gone up and not huge, but has gone up and down over the years. But I just truly believe in loving people as they are. Even as an adult, I worked with senior wellness clinics, and I had one man I remember especially. I was always afraid the scale was going to break because he hit 300, and it didn't go farther than that. But I always gave him a hug at the end of the 10 or 15 minutes I was with him because I wondered, because of his weight and size, how many people would love on him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're amazing with that, and you can go into it further. I know you have a heartbeat. If you all for all of you are part of the community as you listen to this, we joke in my family that my eyes are close to my heart, and that's because 'cause they're similar to my mom's. We joke that we cry at Hallmark movies, at commercials, at laughter turns into tears. Ooh, maybe we'll get you to laugh so hard, Suze, that you start crying and
Gosh, we hope I don't do that today. I haven't done it in a long time.
my mom is beautiful. As you can see, if you're listening, just trust that my mom's beautiful. You can see the pictures that I post. My mom's a beautiful woman, and when she laughs, her whole expression changes. So maybe we'll get the fun of that. But going into what you just said of loving people unconditionally, I shared this in a previous episode when I remember Mal and Jake. Right, I'm a middle kid. I fall into this. Let me say this: you and Dad actively chose to put me in between the two of you at the dinner table because of my behaviors. And I wasn't quote unquote bad. I just had a lot of energy. So we'll put it in that. I was ornery. I was curious and I was ornery. Going into that though, my siblings would dog on me. We dog on each other. But with Mal and Jake, I vividly remember we were driving on Arapahoe Road heading home east. Back then it was, yeah, very different, far less construction and houses and all of that. But I can picture in my head, and Mal and Jake are like, yeah, if Becca has a teen pregnancy, I wasn't sleeping around, but they're like, if she has a teen pregnancy, and you stopped them and you said, if she has a teen pregnancy, we will raise that baby. And from then on, I was like, I'm not even having, sleeping around. But for me, that I still share with people because one, body image mattered in the sense that like who we were, you loved us as we were. We were enough in the body that God designed us in. And two, regardless of what actions we chose, there was going to be consequences. So you held us to a healthy standard of consequences. And yet, unconditional love that we were welcome in the home. It was an open door again. So consequences were there, but the consequence was going to be natural or it was going to happen as it did. And you were, hey, come as you are again and again and again. And so I think then as you talk about Birdman or the different people that you loved on at your senior wellness clinic, loving them and hugging them and it bringing up emotions for you, I would argue is because you are a lover and it's unconditional. It's with friends that have come all over the years. It's with cousins. It's with your siblings. It's with dad. It's with us as kids in all forms of who we are. So thank you for being that role model because I know a lot of moms and daughters my age have some contentious relationships or a lot of pains and hurts. You and I have had to have conversations and apologize to each other for sure in that. But you have a beautiful way of seeing people in their pain and in their hurt and then loving them in that. And so for this particular man that you brought up, 300 plus pounds, you saw him as he was and gave him a big hug because you knew how important physical touch is. You're a nurse by trade, and you understand the needs of humans well. So thank you for that. Let's go into then as you, maybe it's a calling, maybe it's skills that you've built out, Mom, but share a little bit into like how you've walked with people through their grieving stage, how you've given people permission to let themselves die, how you've given permission to or walk through hospice with your mom and with your sister. And if that's too much, that's fine. But what about you makes you say yes to doing that?
Yeah, I think it started with me. I worked at Children's Hospital for 10 years in a newborn intensive care. And so I had lots of little babies there. And we were from a 10-state region at that time. And so babies would get flown in and their parents weren't always there. They physically couldn't come.
The families?
The families couldn't come, the parents and the families. So as many of them, of course, didn't live, especially the little preemies. So I kind of got the job there. I don't know how, but maybe because of my personality that I took those kids and I sat with them through that time, whether it was during my shift or whether it was hours afterwards. So I think that was probably my first start with grief. I certainly had a few grandparents or whatever that had passed away. Then we had our son Chad.
Yeah, sure, sure, here, please. Or if it's too much, that's fine.
No, Um, and he was my first baby and I was so in love. But anyway, he was great, big, beautiful baby, and we were in love. And anyway, he died. I was my second day at work and I got a call and he had passed away from sudden infant death. And so anyway, I had to move through all that. And it was a hard year for us, for my husband and I, but I specifically as far as grief and moving through it, I remember it was 2 days afterwards in the backyard where we still live here. I was outside and whether it was God helping me or whatever, I felt like a 2,000-pound anvil lift off to my shoulders because I'm that half cup full person. And it just to me came, you can be happy, you can enjoy life, you don't have to cry every minute. No. So anyway, from that moment on, I could laugh and the road I traveled was easier because I gave myself permission to be happy again. Not that I look like it, but I did.
Well, and here's the thing is you're 70 years old now, 70 years young, and it's when grief hit, it still hits this hard, right? Like he's still that beautiful boy, right? Like and that those moments still come back. They come back far less than what they used to, right? And because you actively, right? I posted this, but because you actively chose to grieve, to move through it, like you just said, you then were so present in our life. And like what I knew about Chad and the extent, I didn't know his death. Like I didn't know his death story until I had my own kids. However, what I knew was his life. And you grew up, when we grew up, we would go to the cemeteries both on his birthday and on his death anniversary.
And those weren't necessarily sad days either, because I was thinking about that this morning, because there were statues around there, green grass. So here we are taking flowers, and here's you two or three at the time, depending on the time, just running like crazy and climbing up the statues and everything. So then in my heart, I was happy. I think we released balloons maybe one time from there. So, and even just shortly within that month or so afterward, people would bring us food, and Art and I got laughing because one meal was just terrible that somebody, was so nice to bring, but we could laugh.
Good hearts, terrible execution. Yes.
Yeah, and I remember getting we got tons of cards after he died, and one specifically we laughed because it was the parents of a good friend of ours, the mother, and I know she wrote the nicest thing, but we couldn't read hardly but 2 or 3 words out of the whole thing. So we got laughing, but those helped those moments of grief and moving on and that kind of thing, to see that you could be happy again. I'm a person that believes, and I think I pounded this down to you kids, but that the sun's going to come up every day, no matter what happens, whether you do something wrong, whether you get pregnant, whether you whatever, the sun is going to come up tomorrow and it's going to be a better day and things will improve.
For sure, and that's what I was gonna say is because you were present, like, I love cemeteries. I think they're beautiful, I think they're filled with life and memory. I think that they're, like, fun places, and I realize for a lot of people, they're really sacred and sad or spooky, like Halloween and stuff, but because you and dad didn't shy away from us going, like, we went from early age because it was part of our life, to now, like, Nick knows and people around me know that I think cemeteries are so beautiful because it's a place for us to visit or a place for us to have fun, and it is because of those statues and because you let us run around and be playful and be kids, and I think it really is a testament to you and dad saying, we're gonna do the work to move through our anxieties, through our grief, through our sadness." You said, like, "I will do the work," and then you were very present. Like, when I have friends who talk about how sad their parents were or addiction or different things, that could have been your story, right? That you could have chosen to not get out of bed, or you could have chosen to drink or get involved in drugs or any of those other things, and everyone would have understood. You would have had the permission to do that.
Right. In the sudden infant death information we got a lot of afterwards, probably 1 out of 3 marriages ended after a death of a child. So
It makes sense.
something to be proud of too, that we transitioned through that all these years and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge because something that I share now that I'm a parent in my own counseling world is that was the first time that you were, 36, 37, or 70 now, right? Like this is your first time ever being 70 in your life. And so for you to say, like, I'm going to get on a Zoom call or I'm going to, be on this podcast and share about Chad when we were doing the prep and like, hey, mom, full invitation for you to share as much or as little. And you're like, I might cry. And I'm like, that's okay because this is what we talk about on Wild and Well together is we're learning to do life at each year the best that we can. And you did pound it into us to be present, to experience life. You and dad did that in the hard moments of celebrating Chad or being aware of Chad. You also did that in really fun ways of taking us around the world and going on road trips or even being present and saying, let's get to know our community, right? Like from going to the Molly Brown house in downtown Denver and learning the history of who she was, or us sitting in the back, then watching Titanic, right? And you look back and Mal and I are like this.
Close your eyes.
Yeah, you tell us to close our eyes, and I think I probably, as the middle kid, was like, "What does she mean?" Like, but it is, and that was one of Mal's favorite movies for many different reasons and stuff. A beautiful movie, but I think about all those pieces that you instilled in us, and a lot of it was based in traditions, based in biblical things and culture, and it really was in family and hope. Like you are a hope filled person, and do you think that your mom and dad instilled that in you, or where did that come from?
Yeah, I think my mom and dad were very happy people and definitely instilled that in me. I think I don't know if you I'm sure you remember this, but I think you kids got a lot more lectures for things you didn't do than things you did do because I did it in a loving way just because I wanted to make a point in hopes that you wouldn't do that and have to go through some of those things. So a lot of times you guys hadn't even done anything and I gave you a lecture on it. I don't know if that was good or bad, but you know, helps you travel down that road again, I guess. And
Yeah, it's how you chose to
came out and don't drink and don't never were into drugs and I think you listen to the rules and stuff, but
Yeah, and I think it was more as I've, like, decoupled it, I think it was more than yes, rules matter, but I don't know how you learned this, Mom, but I'm grateful for it. You taught us somehow that the reason rules exist are to protect and provide for us, not because a morality issue. And that is something that I don't know how you learned that. And I'm speaking it right now. We didn't talk about this. But that is like the switch that we're trying to teach in Marcus and Lucy as parents is these structures that are set up for you are to live life well and to live life to the best and to have a fulfilled life, a joy-filled life, a happy life. Because that's what we want as moms for our kids and what I want for humanity. And so I don't know how you taught us that. So yeah, when like, man, I remember when a kid smoked weed and you're like, smoked marijuana and you're like, listen to the effects of this. Or you were like, do you know what can happen when you smoke? And I'm like, I still remember I'm like shrinking down. I'm like, Mom, I wasn't even around it. But again, here's the thing is it was unconditional love that had I smoked marijuana, which I didn't, but had I, you would have still allowed me in the house. You would have still loved me. You would have still had like food on the table for me. And yet you would have conversations over and over again. You would have, and these are the effects. This is what are the pros and the cons of life. This is how, like this is going to be a pathway that could affect you. And so I think about those conversations or like, man, remember the one time that I cheated on a test in high school and I was like, "Mom, I wanted out of the class." And so I cheated on this test because then they would like listen to me saying, I need to like I have too many advanced classes. I need out of this class. And you're like, that was a poor way to go about it, Becca. Now they judge your character. And you turn it into a lesson that was about, again, not morality, but about character and virtues and living a life with meaning. So I'm just offering that back. And again, you knocked it out of the park in those regards. But yeah, in the moment, I would be like, why is this woman telling me this? Like, I'm not engaged in any of this nefarious high school shenanigans. Why is this woman lecturing us on this? So yeah, Mal, Jake, and I, if we would have had phones at the time, we probably would have had a subtext and been like, heads up, Mom just lectured me on this, but it was all out of good nature for sure.
I hope they all know that you had a lot of fun growing up too because we danced in the living room, we sang. I'm happy how bright you all turned out. But I love that I passed music on, or dad and I passed music on to you because I think that's a big healing, at least in my life. I hope it's in other people's life, whether you're singing or listening to music or that kind of thing. So I think we passed on a lot of that chicken in the hay, singing that in the bedroom.
That just made it sound so much more country than we are. Oh, yes. As well as like, oh yeah, dancing and music. I mean, maybe that is one reason why Rhythm RX is has become what it is and will continue to because I learned how important music is and anything from again country music to soul and R&B to like funk and your 70s music, right? Like those things were playing as much as anything else, learning, your different records and then CDs as those came out and all of that and stuff. Or Miss Otis Regrets, right? I've told you that people listen to that from the podcast because of you. I think about that though. Mal and I talked about this on the nostalgia one. Mom, that was like a risque one. It talks about her murdering her hubby. Like that's a pretty like I learned that from a young age, which to be fair, my kids are now listening to songs which probably are about the same.
You might not know this, but I did a rap in the car for Jakey one day.
You did a rap?
Yeah, we were driving and I started rapping and then I ended up doing, of course, he started laughing. Can't even tell you what it was about, but he started laughing. Then it made me go into my hysterical laugh where then I started crying. So I had to pull over to the side of the road because I was driving when this happened. So
So good.
crazy memories like that, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So then, as in us sharing stories, we have this bond, you and I, and you and Jake do, and you and Mal do because you've worked for that and you've cultivated it. Same with Dad. We each have a bond with Dad. And at different times we've had to bridge that or we've had to heal that. But our family and the Gambers have always said, like, hey, we leave it at the door and we come and we be present with each other because it's not always often that we get to be together. So when we are together, cousins, extended, we are present. And that's shown up through many deaths in our family, unfortunately. And that's shown up through all the celebrations in our family, is just showing up for each other. And so in that, what would you say is something that you would leave for us youngsters? I'm not even young anymore, but for people younger than you, what would you say is
Yeah, I think you can get through anything. I think you can everybody's gonna die in this world, you know? So, but you don't want it to have it happen earlier.
let
So
me pause you because you're being really serious and I need to just bring the whole community into this. This is the Suze truths. So Nick calls her Suze. Um, these are the Suze truths that I grew up with right there, where she would like drop a bomb and it would be like, all right, we're talking about death. And you say those comments like as if they're nonchalant, where you're like, everyone dies in this world, which is true. And everyone does. But it's like, all right, buckle in. It's a Suze truth. She's going to deliver with kindness. It's going to be truthful. Buckle in. Okay. So back into you.
one my mom gave me, and it was she would say it to all of us, but she said, you know, if you're crying or you're upset or whatever, she'd say, "That's life. Get over it." So things happen. And luckily, things are easy for me to get over. So I think if you can look on the bright side of things and know, like I said, tomorrow's gonna come and it's gonna look a lot different. You might have a hard time sleeping tonight, but tomorrow you're gonna feel better about everything. I would say give it a few days.
Yeah.
Things will get better.
Yeah, it's interesting because for some people they'd be like, just get over it. What does that mean? But you, because you were present in it, you taught us how to move through it. And so it wasn't avoidant. It wasn't like you're like, hey, it doesn't matter. It was move through it. And this idea of life does continue on. And so as we've grieved through the loss of different people or friendships or family members, it's life does continue on for better, for worse. And so how do I learn to wake up with the sun? How do I learn to say, yes, I'm going to re-engage? And in the moments when I do feel low, right? Like again, or when you lost your sister who was your best friend, when those moments happen, you have people around you because you've poured into so many other people through the years.
I'd say one thing that was helpful when we lost Chad was I think people, this would just be something if you're with people that have lost somebody, is I think people were afraid to say his name sometimes in front of me. And for me, it was more helpful. I just wanted to acknowledge him and still do to this day. And I think some people do have the opposite feeling of that. But I would say just listen to people, listen to their story, but then repeat things maybe that they say, or say the child's name or your father's name or whatever. And I'm a big believer in writing letters, which passed on to you at least. Write a note. If you can't talk to them, write a note. Tell them how you feel.
Yeah, beautiful. You did pass that on to me. I'm just gonna give that shout out. Mal and Jake, listen to that.
Yeah, you're great about it. You make me cry every time I get
Oh
one.
my god. Sibling rivalry at its finest right there. Middle kid saying Mel and Jake, listen to that. As you're being so serious and so beautiful. You taught us that. Like when people are grieving to say, to ask about them, to ask about the person who's passed on because we still have those relationships with them. Yes, it looks different of them, being in afterlife and whatnot, but the memories are still there and the love is still there. And so it's changed where I'll ask Nick and I'll say, hey, tell me about your dad. And I give a time of his, childhood, or I ask about a specific magic trick, or I ask something about Mark because to Nick, Mark still exists, right? Even though I didn't know him, or a friend down the street who unfortunately her first son died, right? She brings up that same thing of thank you for asking about his name because or saying, "Hey, tell me about so and so." And I that's a beautiful practical knowledge for people to hear because we are around grief all the time, people grieving, and it does feel awkward and there are awkward silences. It is an unknown. And yet you as the person who's experienced the death and have the deep grief are constantly, whether I bring up Chad's name or not, Chad is in your head. You want him to live. You want his memory to live and the experiences that you had with him. So why not let me give you that space to relive that or to share some things about it?
Another thing, and it just happened this week, I have a friend where her husband's going through cancer. And before I left, I said, "Well, how is he doing and everything?" And she told me. But then when I got home, I thought, "Wow, that wasn't very nice." I didn't ask her how she was doing. So the next day, I typed her a note. Well, we were doing a recipe back and forth anyway. So, but I thanked her and typed her a note. But then I said, "Oh, I feel bad. I didn't ask how you were doing through all of this because I think you forget about you always think of the person with cancer or the sick person or whatever, but you don't always think of the caretaker and that kind of thing. So that might be another thing to pass on to somebody to think about that too.
Yeah. So if I can summarize that, it's say the person's name who's died, and then ask the person who's grieving how they are,
Yeah.
what's going on in their life. Awesome. Last question well, we'll get into the final ones I ask everyone, but last question I have for you as a mom is which kid's your favorite? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. How'd you make Jake, Mallory, and I so close? What actively did you and dad choose to say before you answer that, for our community, when Jake, Mallory, and I get together, especially as we were growing up, we would be not just like chatting close, but physically close. All three of us would sit on the couch together. My mom would probably be there, sometimes dad, but like physically close to the point that when Nick married in, he's like, when do you guys take space from each other? You're kind of codependent and not in a bad way, but he'd be like, you all just really love being around each other. And we're like, yeah, we do. So how did you cultivate that through games, through conversations? Paint a picture a little bit.
Yeah, I think we did that from day one. The big person on touch, but touching people and stuff. So I would have snuggled with you. For my favorite part is the babies when they call me the mom, the baby whisperer. My son-in-law does, but I love the babies holding them on my chest from the first moment. But yeah, we did everything together: games, dancing, singing, movies. Everything was together, and I think I just love that you loved each other. I never you kid about who's a favorite child. I honestly don't think I had a favorite child. I love being around all of you. So I try to incorporate that with everything we did. And I probably made you do something with each other if you were, uh, maybe if you were having too much time away or not. I probably was like, come on, you and Jake do this together. And so whatever. And play on your interests that way. You all swam together. So I had you at the pool every day this summer. That was an easy way to have you together. So
Yeah. Do
yeah.
you know your
It
phrase?
wasn't a chore in my life. Some things mothering came really easy to me. I don't know if I don't think it does to everybody, but to me, mothering came very easy. So I guess that was part of it.
I mean, you're not, what's the right word? You're not giving yourself enough credit because sure, maybe it came easy to you, but you still had 3 babies, 4 and under, 3 and under, 4 and under. You still had us, so close together and the loss of a child and so many things that would have broken someone or, just had a different outcomes. And so for you to say, "Oh, it's easy," that's you flexing the muscle that you created, that your mom created for you, that people helped you create, but that you also chose to engage with as we move through the hard so then we can really be present in the spaces that we're in. You also had follow through. I'll bring this up. I had my mouth washed out, right? It was the 90s. I was raised in the 90s. Don't judge her. This goes on me for all of our community members. I had my mouth washed out because I didn't say profanity. However, I used my tongue to not honor my sister or to bother her, to bug her over and over again. And you gave me, it wasn't threats. It was, you're very good at this. Becca, you choose this or this happens. And your follow through was top notch. And I think that that's why we also respected you is because the follow through was there. And so the follow through was there in love and the follow through was there in loving us. And that also included reprimanding us. And so in that, yeah. So for you to say it was easy is really interesting because I think that's your positive outlook on life because you've gone through a lot of hard.
I think I probably could have had 2 or 3 more, and it would have been busy, but I think I could have done it. Then you add in all the animals, horses, dogs, cats, hamster, fish, bird we had who mama took care of, but I don't know, I guess I was born for that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And maybe it is a calling. That's funny. Our kids,
Genetics. My mom, I think, was like not the animal thing so much, but I think my mom could have taken on anybody or the world probably.
So then, yeah, shout out to the mamas and superpowers. Let's end it here then. What is your, you have a seat at the table, which you taught us. Before we get to who you're bringing, what are you bringing? What dish?
You told me I couldn't say cookies, so
No, you can't take it.
I always bring cookies to everything, so but actually, I would bring my favorite meal to bring would be my country ribs. I make my own barbecue sauce. You cook them till they're perfectly tender, hopefully, and then you might have a baked potato and a spinach salad, something like that to go along with it, and, I didn't carry on my mom's tradition, but whoever wants to make me homemade bread, you've got me right there if you make me some homemade bread to have with any meal.
All right, I will write the letters. This is where Mal wins for bread because she's the only one of us three that makes homemade breads.
I can do it, but I didn't carry it on.
Yeah, Mal wins that one for sure.
Okay.
What about and then oh, this is what I want to bring up is you people will say like, "Susie, you gave me the recipe, but it doesn't taste the same." Or I'll say, "Mom, I've tried to make these cookies and they're just not the same." Or Lulu says, "Mom, these are not Grammy's cookies." And I say, "They are Grammy's cookies, but I made them." What's your recipe or what's your secret ingredient?
So I say I would never give you a wrong recipe. I would always give you the recipe, but the difference is I make them with love, and that's why they taste different.
And I make them with anger and animosity. I don't know. I don't know why they're good. I feel like I make them out of love too, but it is. She's a phenomenal baker for our wild ones listening. Suze is a phenomenal baker. Cookies at some point, we've tried to convince her at different points to have a little bake, turn it into a company. But as of now, she's Grammy fully. Who are you bringing to the table, Mama?
Okay, I'm gonna have a quick answer, but then I'm gonna have a second one is probably my sister, because I miss her. She was my bestie. We lived in the same town, and, maybe I hadn't seen her for a week, so we could talk on the phone for 3 hours, so I miss that. But
Or you did see her the day before and you would still talk to her for 3 hours on the phone.
yeah, and I think I love that I could make her laugh, and I don't always have that with everybody, but she's one that would laugh at my stories and stuff like that, so but my other response is I wouldn't bring anybody. I'd always leave that open to
Yeah. You're a good one, Suze Harder. Um,
always want somebody to have a table to come sit at. So that chair is for you if you come to my house.
I mean it. This you listening today, this is why I have the heartbeats that I do is many people, but Susie, raised by you, Mama, is a gift to all three of us. And as you can see, her heart is close to her eyes, so she's a crier. My heart is
I
close.
think I have glasses today.
Yeah, there you go. You can't. It's shielded by your laser beams. What was that? What was that character that you said in the beginning?
Adamant.
Anime. All right, I'll look that one up. But again, just this genuine desire for people to be seen. And now, as your daughter, that's my goal, right? Is how do we bring mental health to the masses? How do we allow people to be seen? And Marcus, we'll see. I think he's more logical in the sense of like logistics, details, analytical. And Lulu, though, might have those same genes. So we'll see how that gets passed on to the next generation. But there is a seat at the table and offering that to anyone of any walk of life, whether really wealthy, really poor, really light skin, really dark skin, really old and wrinkly, brand new baby that you can hold on your chest. That seat at the table's for you. And you've shown us that beautifully. Anything else you want to leave? Otherwise, I'll sign us off.
No, you've pushed me to my limits today.
I love it. Thank you for being on here, Mama. I am so grateful that you said yes. I know that that's you choosing to be brave. Y'all, to community listeners, my mom likes to be behind the scenes. She can absolutely hold the spotlight, but she likes being behind the scenes and is kind of that silent strength, similar to Nick, that allows the rest of us to operate in a really healthy way. So thank you, Mama, for being on here.
Love you more.
I love you more. Thank you, One Love listeners, for joining us for another episode with one of my most favorite people. Happy Mother's Day to those mothers. And this is another episode. Be well, y'all.